From a time that even predated Bernie Sanders, there has been an exorbitant need amongst the species of hairless monkeys to stuff their skull noodles with the whereabouts of their fellow men. Prehistoric men conveyed the early form of news by toddler-like masterpieces on the cave walls and ceilings, which, together with the ghoulish stench of smell and the minimal IQ, is just amongst the many similarities that the two human-like creatures share. This early news was mostly about basic survival techniques like finding food, avoiding dangerous wild animals, finding high-speed internet, the staples. As these depolated imps became more civilized and started trading their lives' bounty across the wobbly blue puddle, merchants and sailors became the major bearers of news and syphilis to the mainland, which was later picked up by traders and spread from town to town, reaching the minuscule number of scribes who would write it down. Like the ancient game of Chinese whispers that this ordeal was, the news that was documented would be as realistic as an influencer's Instagram post. With the great inventions like the idea of democracy, republic, and bacon, Romans were amongst the first people to start publishing newspapers. It was around 59 BC that Julius Caesar introduced Acta Diurna Populi Romani, or the daily acts of Roman people, and reported on government business, decrees, proclamations, and ancient celebrity gossip. Around 600 AD, China developed a version of newspaper called Dibao during the Tang dynasty. Unlike the most ironic oxymoron of time, it was upheld as a model of freedom of press and free speech by scholars like Andrei Chladni of Finland. The fall of Romans also saw a decline in the Bieber fever of writing down gossip, and people went about with more pressing issues, like drowning witches and outlawing soccer. It was only by the 14th century, alongside the launch of the revolutionary Edward of Windsor and Nike long to 1330, that journalism was reintroduced to the Western world. Thanks to the OG of printing, Gutenberg, for inventing the printing press by 1440, a way to bring the blabber sheet to the masses was finally available. The year is 1855 of the Great American Experiment, and it's already been a decade and a half since the first selfie was clicked. A decade has passed since telegraphy nitro boosted the speed of our news. Industrial revolution has transformed the geography of the country. The get-rich-quick scheme discovered in California has pumped in huge quantities of shiny yellow metal into the economy, and the new middle class gobble our advertisement-laden, highly popular newspapers. News is at its zenith. It just can't be better. The year is 1925. It's already been 5 years since we first heard the Harding-Koch presidential race on the radio. It was around the same time that the ancient and godly folks shut all the honky-tonks down, causing but a minor inconvenience. And by the grace of our hip friends, the moonshine never really stopped flowing. And this entire prohibition claptrap kinda improved the fashion sense and the music scene of our time. Now you can listen to the news right away with our omnipresent radios. Travel freely anywhere on your Ford Model T, to the Charlton, to the new jazz beat. Life could just not be better. News is at its zenith. Life is at its zenith. It just can't be any better. The year is 1952. It has been 7 years since all the fighting halted, and the economy is through the roof thanks to the post-war boom. Suburbs have fled outside the city like acne on a 14-year-old's forehead, and the new beats of rock and roll he's listening to is bringing this house down. Figuratively, of course. These mass-produced living boxes have a lavishly sized family room, where the entire family enjoyed the Republican and Democratic conventions live from the comfort of their homes for the first time. Regular broadcasts of news and sports on the TV has spread a collective American culture throughout the country. News is at its zenith. Oh, okay, I should stop this now. As the avenues of advertisement overtook the revenues from subscription during the Industrial Revolution, attention of a customer's gaze sockets was far more profitable than the money from their pockets. The newspaper publishers came up with penny papers, extremely cheap tabloid-style newspapers, to entice the gaze sockets of their readers and profiting immensely from the advertisements and teasers. This model had but one complication. You needed the gaze sockets of an entire nation, and thus the word mass media witnessed its creation. Radios further adopted a model similar. Excluding the initial cost of the device, the entertainment was almost free for the consumer. And the same was Control C and Control V by the TV programming just a bit later. While you could consume this media at a cost similar to downloading a torrent, producing any of these forms of media required levels of wealth exorbitant. Owning and maintaining machinery to mass produce newspapers, hiring journalists, cartoonists, and illustrators. All these were things that burned out cash at a speed extreme, like a hype beast buying resales of Off-White and Supreme. TV and radio broadcasting was a game open to very limited players, while the US went with its beloved capitalistic model and made the corporation take its care. Europeans went with corporations in which government controlled the major shares. And in communist eastern countries like Russia, Poland, Romania and Hungary, you guessed it, the government controlled everything on the contrary. News has always been this weird pillar of democracy, which in itself has barely ever been democratized. The reason why there have always been very few people controlling most of what we see or read is the same as why you're probably not watching this video from a floating private mansion somewhere on the sea. It costs money, and we don't have any. Despite the number of media corporations being less than the grooves on Thanos' chin from the very beginning, continued mergers and takeovers through history has made this number equal to the number of keystones on his glove. In the US, 5 corporations control most of what anyone sees or hears. That's AT&T, Disney, Comcast, National Amusement, and News Corp, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, internet's favorite Aussie daddy. These companies not only control 90% of American media, but also control the majority of what is stared at by the gaze sockets across the world by a weird web of corporate ownerships and other businessy, soody stuff. It is never in the best interest of anyone watching when like 5 boomers control the TV remotes of billions of houses. When have they done something that all of us collectively appreciate? Yeah, never boomer. Saying that the internet entirely flipped the news scene is like saying Teslas sell electric cars, or like saying diamonds are just useless rocks propped up by marketing, or like saying your daddy's your father. Oh wait, that one might just need some context. While someone required gazillions of dollars to be a broadcaster before, with the internet, anyone could be a broadcaster for less than a month's cable subscription. Take that, mainstream media! Websites like Reddit and Twitter have made it so that the consumer can, for the first time, vote if the information that they are receiving is actually helpful to them. This is the first time in history that news has a certain sense of democracy to it. While the mainstream media focuses on getting as many eyes as possible, an independent journalist on the internet can appease to a very narrow group of target audience and talk about the issues that really matter to that group. It's like the mainstream media is like a cheap, fried, all-you-can-eat buffet, and the journalist on the web is like a private chef preparing gourmet meals exclusively for you. Revenues of newspapers is at an all-time low. TV news viewership is constantly bleeding out, while millions of people tune into the podcasts at the comfort of their routines. This is the first time in history that the news has really been democratized. This is the first time in history that you and I have a voice. Thank you for watching it to the end. It took a ton of research to get this video done. If you like what you just saw, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Until the next time, thank you.